Seconds out, Eamon Khan here with the man who is hard to put a label on because of his vast experiences in boxing. He is the one and only. Let's go with Cutsman to the greats, Russ Anber. Russ, sir, how are you doing?
I'm good, Eamon. Thank you for having me, man. I really appreciate that.
Pleasure to speak to you. Pleasure to see you again. Russ, let's start off. I've seen online you were very much reminiscing moments past with Otis Grant capturing a world title. It's a bit before my time, Russ, but what are your recollections from that time period?
Everything was before your time. Everything was before everybody's time. You know what? My fondest memory in boxing and the greatest single moment of my life happened in Sheffield, England. And, that was with Otis fighting Ryan Rhodes, who I'm happy to say that I still have a good relationship with, and we message each other from time to time. And as a matter of fact, John Scully, who I've been friends with, Otis and I have been friends with since 1988, the other day went over to Otis's gym, and one of the sparring partners that's in town for Beterbiev had Ryan's number. So Otis and Ryan, met on a FaceTime call for the first time since their fight. So that was kind of nice that they did that. And great moment. I distinctly, one of the things I distinctly remember about that was being at the press conference on the week of the fight, telling everybody how I've always dreamed at being in Sheffield, but my dream was to go to the Crucible in boxing. So we won a world title there in the great city of Sheffield, and to this day, still the highlight of my life, because I had Otis since he was 13 years old. And there's not a lot of fighters. You can talk about all the trainers out there. There's not a lot of people who can make claim to having somebody from the cradle to the championship. And that's always going to be my greatest memory, I think.
Yeah, I saw through the power of technology they were united to talk for a bit online. I think that was through Callum Simpson, who's joined Beterbiev camp to help train him. Speaking of Beterbiev, Russ, a lot to talk about with Artur, as his big fight's coming up. He's coming to the UK to take on Anthony Yarde in January. First of all, Russ, could I get in your own words what Beterbiev is like to work with?
Oh, he's great. It's too bad sometimes you guys don't get to see, maybe after the fight, but like the guy who in preparation for the fight, it's too bad he doesn't speak a better English, because he's like Usyk in the sense that he has an outstanding sense of humor, and he's a lot of fun to be around. You can talk to Scully about this. You can talk to Mark Ramsey about this. He's just a pleasure to be around when outside of fight week. Once fight week kicks in, now he's focused. Now he's not playing anymore. Now there's no more joking. He's all business, very serious. He's down to business right away. And then as soon as the bell rings and the fight's over, he's back to being the same old Arthur again. So I think every minute with him.
Now, a very intriguing moment that we captured at Seconds Out was Anthony Yarde in post Beterbiev's last fight mentioned that he'd seen Beterbiev in the flesh, and he felt that he was slower than he perceived Beterbiev to be on TV. What do you make of that estimation from Anthony Yarde, having seen Artur so close for so long, Russ?
Well, I think what he said exactly, Eamon, was he said that both he and Joe Smith were both very slow. That was his in what fighters say at the press conference leading up to a fight, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, 50% of the time they're wrong. Somebody's wrong, right? Well, they both say things, somebody's wrong. So I don't care. It doesn't matter. I guess he couldn't say, well, I don't think he punches that hard. At least he didn't say that, so he at least acknowledges that. But if he thinks he's slow, then that's good. Did you see what Beterbiev's reaction to that was?
Yes. That's where the humor came in, Russ.
That's right. That's right. I understand. Yeah. Yeah.
Russ, I see these clips of Artur, and he does these what we would see over here as unconventional training methods that we don't really utilize over here. And it leads me to the question of, there's two schools of thoughts in boxing as to whether power, you're born with it or you train for it. Seeing someone like Beterbiev, do you pinpoint your answer to that question, having seen what he does in his training?
Repeat that. You froze for a second there. Could you repeat that, the last part?
Sure. So the last part was, having seen Beterbiev, firsthand, do you have an answer to that question as to where Beterbiev's power comes from? Is it from that training, or is it something he's born with?
I believe there are three things in boxing that you're born with, or actually in any sport, you're inherently born with a natural ability of doing something. Let's say in boxing, you're born with, if you are super fast, you're born with that. If you have power, you're born with that. If you have a great, develop those other two. I'm not sure about going around developing a good chin. Getting it hit often is not really a good way to develop it. But for speed and power, what you have, you can certainly enhance. So it's my belief that a fighter, whether it be like Artur Beterbiev or somebody else, the first day he walked in the gym with all the other kids or anybody else his age, everybody hit the pad or hit the bag or whatever. The coach said, this guy here was better than all those other guys, right? Now, he didn't know how to. So naturally, you build on that. And I think that's the case with, 100-meter sprinters or whatever. They have a certain gift that you say, that stride is really good. That kid's stride at 11 years old, 12 years old, 13 years old is better than all the 11, 12, 13-year-olds. There's something about it. Now, you just can't leave it at that. And it's not somebody wakes up when they're 22 and says, you know what, today I think I got them. That makes them better than everybody else. And then they train. Power Beterbiev had became even more power. The same way that whatever power you have, Eamon, and you go in and hit the bag, if you train properly, you will increase on that power. Will you ever be a one-punch knockout artist? I don't know. I haven't seen you hit. But whatever it is, you'll improve on. So if you do have that one-punch knockout power, you'll make it even better because your technique will get better. Am I making sense what I'm saying here?
Sure.
So that's how I feel about his power and his speed. And, I think that applies to fighters, athletes in all sports who succeed at a level. Whatever it is they do, they just do things that are just a little bit better, and they're just a little more special than anybody else. And I to use a UK sports superstar is Ronnie O'Sullivan. Was running hundreds, when he was 10 years old. You don't think people stood around and said, I think there's something special here. You know what I mean? Now, that's a natural ability. Stay in that and compete with the best in the world over the years and become 7-time world champion. And at 7 times, he's probably an underachiever. He probably should have been 10 times by now world champion, So, yeah, natural ability plays a great role.
Now, Anthony Yarde over here, we see him as someone who also carries great power, most notably in the highlight of his career so far. A losing effort, but an effort in which saw him, I believe, in round 8 or 9, nearly defeat Sergey Kovalev over in Russia. Russ, what's your finger on the pulse in terms of Anthony Yarde and the challenge he'll bring to Artur Beterbiev when the two meet in the ring?
What you froze at? What do what?
What's your finger on the pulse in terms of the challenges Anthony Yarde will bring to Beterbiev in the ring when they meet?
Well, look, the one thing he's going to bring, he's going to be at home. He's going to be surrounded by people. He's his own people. He's going to feel that confidence and draw from their energy. But Arthur has made it a habit of being a road warrior, if you will. He's been on the road. I don't think that's going to really bother him all that much. And I do think that Yarde is going to bring. I think he's going to try to exploit that. And I know that this is his opportunity to do so. And everybody is treating him as a massive underdog. Thankfully, Arthur is not. Neither are we in the camp. So we have the utmost respect for Yarde and his power. And, we know that he's a challenger to the world light heavyweight title, and he'll be treated as such. But, believe me, it's not going to be easy. And rounds, it's going to be a hell of a fight, and we're going to have to work. Getting the victory is going to require a massive effort.
Going into that moniker I gave you in the intro about it being a cutsman to the greats, Beterbiev suffered a cut against Marcus Brown. Now, when we last spoke, Russ, you gave me an excellent insight into why Usyk's cut wouldn't be a factor in his fight with Joshua in Jeddah. Could you tell me if that would be the same case with Beterbiev in a fight with Yarde, the possibility of cuts reopening the set for Beterbiev or in any future fight at all?
Yeah, I don't think, that's one of those freak cuts that, luckily holds together quite well. And it's not a place that, usually is susceptible to being open. I mean, I've had that now twice. I've seen it now. Well, actually, this is the third time I've seen it in my life, in my career in boxing. If I'm not mistaken, Jim Watt suffered the same cut down the front of his face against Howard Davis. I'm pretty sure it was Jim Watt that suffered that same cut down, and they couldn't get that stopped either for love or money. It's a hard, because there's a vein right down the middle. If it gets to that vein, it just continues to piss out all night. Then I had the issue with the fight with Badu Jack, where the same thing happened against Marcus Brown again. So I always felt that Marcus was that was somewhat intentional on what he tries to do. And then it happens again with Beterbiev. And of course, being a southpaw that he is, that that makes it more susceptible. But I don't think it's an issue in the fight at all.
Now, I don't know if this was part of Beterbiev's humor or this was a serious comment from Artur, but he said he'd like to potentially move up to heavyweight and challenge Oleksandr Usyk in the future. Would you relish that fight, seeing those two go at it?
No, I would not, because then I'm out of a great night's experience, and I'm out of a payday, and I can't work against either one of them. I would never do that, because I've been with them for Arthur for his entire professional career, and Usyk for pretty much his entire career. So, I certainly would never work in a corner against either one of them. So, no, I do not relish that. But I will tell you this: I wouldn't doubt that he would want to do it. Because they fought in the Olympics. So no, I wouldn't want to do it. And an interesting story about that is that Beterbiev was supposed to fight in the light heavyweight division at the Olympics. And for whatever political reason, they didn't give him the spot at light heavy and told him, well, if you want to fight, you have to fight at heavyweight. And he did. He moved up and fought at heavyweight. Like, doesn't care. And he certainly carries the power to move up, so I don't think that's an issue. But he's not joking when he says that's something he'd like to try to do, and I wouldn't put it past him if he wanted to. But like I said, I certainly wouldn't be one that wants to see it. But that's from my own personal perspective.
Now, moving on to the last time I saw you, Russ, that was in Jeddah ahead of Usyk Joshua 2. The aftermath was very intriguing. I didn't manage to get your thoughts at the time. Firstly, what was your reaction to Joshua's actions of taking the mic and making the speech? It was a surreal moment, Russ.
That didn't bother me at all, really. I thought, what he did was, obviously having been in Saudi Arabia before, he felt a little bit more at home. I'm not sure that I made a big deal about that. What bothered me a little bit only after the fact, I didn't see it, was when he threw the belts down. And I didn't see that, but I'm sure that that's just a moment of frustration for Anthony, because he wants to win so much, and listen, people under the pressure, everyone handles things a little bit differently. So I certainly did not take any personal offense to what he did. I knew he was upset. There was an incident that happened in the ring between Anthony and Usyk's trainer. They kind of bumped shoulders, and you only see that after the fact. Then the camera, so I don't know sometimes who directs, these calls of the cameras in the fights. They're clicking off on all the wrong things instead of being able to see this. I mean, in this day and age of the world, everybody has it on their video camera. This is on TV, and you miss these things, like you don't stay with them. They don't see it happening. But that happened in the ring, and I thought that was a little bit unfortunate that it happened, because it was a great night that night in Jeddah. Jeddah's a great city for me, and with great memories in it as well. Having been there with Callum Smith when he won the Ali trophy, being back there with Usyk was brilliant as well, and got treated very well. And it's just one of those things in the aftermath, in the heated moment of the fight, with the frustration of the guy who wanted to win. And you don't know why he felt such frustration. Was it something that was said to him in the corner? Was he expecting to be announced as the winner? Did they tell him they thought he won the fight, and that just made him lose it like, oh, did I get? I don't know. But Anthony's a great guy, perhaps one of the greatest boxing ambassadors the UK has ever found, and he's a profound worldwide star. So how can you be mad at him? I mean, anybody who knows Anthony, you cannot dislike the guy.
Now, certainly it's happened throughout the history of boxing, but it seems to be a more newer school thing for fighters to go trainer shopping, I guess. And that is where Anthony Joshua finds himself now, with maybe potentially leaving Robert Garcia, finding himself in Derek James's gym, Virgil Hunter's gym. Russ, where do you feel Anthony Joshua might end up, and where do you think he should go to next?
I didn't know that he is not with Robert Garcia anymore. Is this official?
Yes, it seems so. I mean, there's the possibility that he might remain with Robert Garcia, but seemingly not so at the moment.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know, Eamon. Not for me to speak on this at all. I don't know the situation enough to be able to offer you. I mean, I know everyone has their opinions on things, but at least I like my opinion to be somewhat founded on a certain amount of knowledge and, deduction that I've made. I don't know enough about it to speak on it, so not my place to talk on it. I think that at some point, and not only Joshua, but all fighters have to understand the evolution that they come through. And sometimes the answers are right there in your own backyard and you don't see them. And you cannot take anything away from the fact that, the relationship, whatever it was, and I don't know enough about it, but I know both people and I have nothing but good things to say about them. But the relationship that seemed to happen between Anthony and Rob McCracken seemed to be a great mix, and that basically took him to the two-time heavyweight champion of the world. Like, that's pretty damn good. If that's not a good enough resume to keep your job, what is, right? Like, I don't know. Sometimes I'm at a loss sometimes as to why things happen the way they do. But I remember specifically when Anthony fought Klitschko, I called Rob immediately after the fight, and I told him, you brought him back in that fight, because after he got dropped and he was hurt, Rob really remained calm in the corner. He calmed Anthony down. He told him, let's just get back to it. That was some of the best work of corner I had seen in a while, and a perfect example of a trainer bringing the kid back, and he knew just what to say to him. And Anthony, for credit to himself, responded to that and did what he was told and scored one of the greatest victories in British boxing history. So I don't know. I'd rather speak on something I had more knowledge of before I can say what he should do in trainer shopping.
That's fair enough, Russ. Either way, Anthony Joshua was defeated in that fight, and Usyk goes ahead to hopefully take on Tyson Fury for the undisputed heavyweight championship next year. Russ, it seems like the rhetoric right now is that it's a classic rhetoric. A good big man beats a good little man. But is it as simple as that? Does Usyk have the skills to negate those cliches and get the victory over Tyson?
You would think so. I mean, Tyson has proven to be a very, great fighter. And I say that not so much on the victories, because his greatest victory is the Wilder fights, where he beat the heavyweight champion of the world, stopped him, picked himself off the canvas to do so. But for such a big guy, he brings that mobility and that, and the look of him. You don't expect him, when you look at him, to think that this body could do what he does in the ring. And I think that speaks highly of him. So if he would have been somebody if he would fight like what his body type should fight, like cumbersome and mechanical, yes, that would be great for us. That would be wonderful. But he doesn't. And that's what hurt Wilder's chances. And gave great success to Fury, and I think is the thing that makes things difficult for Usyk, because he does have a boxing IQ. He is smart in the ring. He can do different things. He can use his size. He can use his boxing abilities. He has good defensive abilities. He's hard to catch clean. He's a big guy. He knows how to push the rules right to the border and how he grabs you and holds you and leans on you. And you need a referee who's going to be fair in dishing out those warnings when he does things like that. But he's able to do all that kind of stuff, and he makes it work for himself. So I definitely don't think it's going to be an easy night. Listen, the guy's the heavyweight champion of the world. It can't be an easy night.
Russ, a question I neglected to ask you last time out, but it still holds true this time round, is the impact of the war that likely has or hasn't had on Oleksandr Usyk. That will stand true, unfortunately, if the war remains between Russia and Ukraine into Usyk's next fight. How had Usyk been able to kind of shut that out and focus on anti-Joshua, and then in the future focus on Tyson Fury?
I don't know. They asked me this leading up to the fight, and I think it just speaks volumes for the mental strength that this guy has. You know, like he's a special man. You know, he's, again, all part of those the natural things we talked about that you're born with. Your character, your sense of mental strength, how you deal with things. We all try to say, oh, I would handle myself like this, or you know, in this situation I would do this. But in the moment that it happens, you don't think about what you said you might have done. You kind of just instinctively react, kind of like road rage, you know? You don't expect to, but right there you react to it. And then you reflect back on it and say, I should have said this to that driver, you know, I should have done this, but you don't. So I think that's part of his mental makeup of how he handles things that make him so special. And that's one of the things that he does handle. He's in the eye of a hurricane, and he's as calm as hell. You know, and I think that's he handled it. I don't know how, you know, when you're thinking of everything you've got, your family, friends, loved ones, your property, things you've had in your life growing up, you know, that are there and might no longer be there. People you know, or know somebody who knows, women that are being raped, children that are beaten, people killed, bombs exploding. You know, when I see people today complaining, especially in North America, you know, complaining about how tough things are because there's lineups at shopping centers, and, you know, because of Christmas, and how they really, you know, like people in our society, the Western society now is just, we're a bunch of snowflakes. You know, everyone complains about everything, you know, entitled to a good life, and everything has to be perfect. And if it's not, well, somebody has to fix it and make it perfect for me. You know, and they talk about the mental strength. Go live what these guys are living in Ukraine if you want. No, they're waking up to no heat. They're waking up to no power. No, they can't go to the bathroom, plumbing. Try living like that. You're worried about the pandemic and what you have to be put through because you have to wear a mask. Think about what they're going through.
Final couple of questions for me before we close off. Russ, I seen online you had quite a bit to say about the situation that transpired with Terence Crawford's gloves in his fight with David Avanesyan. Now, the situation isn't fully clear. Statements have been put out, but there's been an appeal going through from Avanesyan's side. What's kind of your eye on that situation?
Look, my only take on this was what I saw in the picture that was released online of the supposed gloves that were being worn. And the thing that I put out was, can anybody confirm or deny that these are, in fact, the gloves that Crawford wore? If they are, based on the picture, if it's not doctored, those are used gloves. Those are used gloves. How he was able to ever put them on his hands, I don't know, but those are used gloves. I'm not blaming Everlast, because I believe that Everlast did send the gloves that they were supposed to send. You know, I believe they sent that. But the gloves they sent were not the gloves that were in the ring. And I'm an expert in this, and I can tell you this is not the case. If that picture is correct, what's bothering me now is that these gloves have yet to see the light of day. Like, where are they? Why are we not seeing these gloves? And why didn't the commission, after the referee pointed out to the commission at ringside that there's a tear in the gloves, and they didn't change them because the spares were left in the back? What do you mean left in the back? Like, that's why they're spares, so that they're up front. That's the whole reason of having them. He scores the knockout, and then the commission doesn't confiscate the gloves after the fight because there's a problem. Now, you just fought with technically illegal gloves according to their own rules, you know, that these gloves had to be changed. You did, and a guy suffered a knockout as a result. Why would not confiscate the gloves, even if it was to prove that they didn't have a difference or a bearing on the outcome of the fight, right? Even if it was to prove that. So those kind of things bothered me a lot. That I hate when things like, you know, commissions are supposed to be there for the protection, safety, and well-being of both fighters, not just one guy. And it wasn't fair that David Avanesyan got treated that way and was allowed to have somebody fight with gloves, in which, in my 43 years in the game, I've never seen two gloves on two hands bust in two different places ever. And if a new pair of gloves was to burst open, the place they would likely burst open would be in a stitched area, in a seam somewhere. Sometimes you'll see the thumb come apart. That's happened, and it's quite commonplace where the thumb comes apart, because that little tab that holds the thumb to the body of the glove is very small. There's only probably 4 or 5 needle stitches that can get into that to hold it, and it's a high stress area, you know, from punching, opening, you know, like it's a high stress area being held together by four stitch points. You know, that happens. The seam could burst at the side. Sometimes in the wrist area could pop open. I've never seen a pair of gloves brand new where the leather itself burst open, and if you look at the pictures, the stitching is still intact, as is the leather that's attached to the stitching. It's above it that it breaks open. That's the sign of glove rot, and that's what happens when an old glove is being used. That's the way a glove ages in wear and tear. Go into any gym, look at all old gloves that are there, and you'll see where glove rot happens, and it happens in the leather, not on the seam.
Now, Russ, very cognizant of that. I've taken a lot more of your time and leaving a lot of questions on the table because there's so much to pick your brain on, but hopefully we'll do that.
You mean I talk too much? That's what you just said, right?
No. I mean, there's a lot to talk to you about, but there'll be more to talk to you about when you come over to the UK for Liam Smith versus Eubank Jr., a fight in which pressurized situation for both. Neither fight will want to lose, being that leaving a loss for either fighter might be a long road back there. What do you make of Liam's chances against Chris Eubank Jr.?
I'm very excited about this fight, and my dear friend and good friend Roy Jones is going to be in the opposite corner, so it's going to be me against Roy as well. So I'm very excited about that.
Russ, again, we'll go into in-depth more at the time, but it's been a pleasure speaking to you once again. Wishing you a very Merry Christmas, and we'll catch up very soon, sir.
Eamon, thank you very much for your time, for having me on. I'm sorry it was a little difficult in getting, you know, coordinating our times together, but great stuff, and I'll see you when I'm back over in the UK.
Looking forward to it. Thank you so much, Russ.
Happy holidays, mate.